Hello, hello. I think we're still letting some folks in, but welcome to another Condor Zoom chat with Ventana Wildlife Society. Thank you for tuning in. We have a lot of exciting information to share. For those of you that tuned in to the release this past Saturday, we're going to be giving updates on how all the released birds are doing. The infamous San Simeon 9. And we have some other exciting stuff, and I definitely want to, today is going to be fun because we have the field crew here who weren't with us during the releases. They were actually down there with the birds. And so yeah, remember folks, turn off the, make sure you go on mute during the Zoom talk per the usual. Thank you for that. And then, yeah, so it'd be great to have the crew here. They're excited to share what it was like to be down there watching these birds we had our first release and then our second one, and watching these birds go out, take their first steps and flights out in the wild. But yeah, things are looking really good down there. I have prepared a presentation, so I'm going to share my screen here and get started. Let's see here. Yep. And just give me a thumbs up if everyone can see this. I couldn't help myself. I had to get in the Christmas spirit here. This was Stephanie on our crew. Stephanie Herrera made this awesome little video here to celebrate the Christmas spirit here. Yeah, Christmas is fastly approaching, so we're gonna have the Condor Christmas will probably be a little different than ours, but nonetheless, they'll be out there right along with us. But yeah, so today I have with me Darren Darren, speak up there. I think we'll be able to see you.
Yeah, hey everyone.
And we have Mike Stake, who's also on the Condor project. He does our non-lead outreach, and he gets out in the field too and works with tons of other birds. And we have Kathy Hamilton, our office manager. She's on the call as well, she's going to be helping us field questions and controlling the Zoom. So thank you, Kathy. And we also have Stephanie Herrera. Stephanie, give us a shout out if you're there.
Hi, everyone.
And we have Evan McGreeth, who is also there. You there, Evan?
Yeah, I'm here. Hi, everyone.
So really excited to have these guys with us, guys and gals with us. And yeah, it's been a crazy week. We've had an exciting week for the crew. The birds are out on their own now, fending for themselves and making that big adjustment to the wild. So we're watching them watching them diligently out in the field, following the movements. And yeah, we have a kind of a rundown here of like what is happening with the San Simeon 9. We had our second release, so all 9 are out. One quick thing, last time we gave our release Zoom, 2 of the more recent editions, 974 and 990, were brought to us kind of late in the game, but we added them to our release group this year. And this was a big bonus because, of course, of what happened during the Dolan fire, the big losses we had to our population. This was really great. The program found 2 more birds for us to release. And so between the last Zoom and now, we were able to come up with names for these 2. And the names are Kodiak and Sierra. So 974 will be Kodiak and 990 will be Sierra, excuse me. And these are, we base these names off the aviation alphabet, and kind of to honor the releases this year. They really came through. A lot of different players came to bat for us, and obviously Lighthawk, these birds were flown down by Lighthawk. So we thought it was a cool theme to stick with. And these names seem to suit these two birds and their personalities. And so we have a full roster of names now for the flock or for these release groups. And again, the names, I'll review them again because they are tricky to pronounce. The names of the other birds were given to us by local Native American tribes. So we were really thankful for that, really appreciated that. And so starting with 956, his name is pronounced Huchin. And again, that's a male. And Huchin means to get to be first in the Rumsen language. 957 his name is pronounced Mersh. And it means to be dark in the Rumsen language. And then we have 962, which is pronounced, I want to make sure I get this right, Sato, and that means black in the Rumsen language. And Sato is one of our two females, and the other female being 966, Peachy. And Peachy references the sacred mountain Pico Blanco, which is in Big Sur. It's a really prominent peak. So that's that comes to us from the Esalen language. The next bird we have 968, Wasuk, another male, and Wasuk means condor in the Rumsen language. And I just told you 974 and 990 were named after using the aviation alphabet, and then we have 994, which is pronounced hawking, almost like hawk, which is pretty cool, hawking. And hawking means to eat ravenously in Rumsen language, and that definitely applies to condors. 995, teach, another male, and this means condor in the Antonian dialect of the Selenian language. So yeah, there we have our full release group, and of course we have Kodiak and Sierra now in the mix. And so you know, everyone had watched that was watching on the cam got to see them in the pen before release, and here are some of the photos of the birds. And now we're watching with the birds on the outside, popping in on the cam periodically. And so the crew is behind the scenes. The crew is watching these birds closely. They're sitting behind one-way glass in the blind in this small building, which the birds can't see into. They go in before the birds wake up, basically, and get in there, and they can see these birds in close range. And then we also stage ourselves in areas around the release site where we can hope to spot these birds now that they're out flying about. One of our first major goals after we release these birds is to get them back feeding. And I talked about this the last time on the last release Zoom. We want to get them back in a routine of feeding on the supplemental carcasses. And the supplemental carcasses we provide are given to us, donated to us by dairy farmers. They're stillborn calf carcasses. And these provide these young birds their first food. We got asked a question, I think, on the last Zoom, how soon before after we release condors will they actually find food on their own? And we see a huge variation in that. We've had birds find food within a week on their own. Like we had a group of birds we released at Big Sur that were feeding on a sea lion within days of being released. So that was, to me, that was pretty, that's not the usual. The usual takes about 2-3 months at least before these guys learn how to fly well enough and can follow the older birds to wild food. So this is kind of an interim food source for these guys to help teach them, help them build up their confidence. Again, these are young birds that are, you know, we're just trying to get them as confident as possible, because it's easy to get down on yourself if you're trying to get into this new hierarchy. It's with all these older, intimidating birds. But what's been really great, and what the report is from the field crew, is that these birds definitely are adjusting well behaviorally, at least on the social front. And I think you guys have seen it on the cam where they're hanging out pretty well with the adults that hang out, our adult breeding pair, 566 Mike's bird and the Pinnacles female 725, and then also their 711. So they're definitely holding their own. They're definitely feeding around these birds. So we're hitting all the check marks in terms of how well these birds are doing. And we had Darren, you can pipe in here. We had 968, right? Took the first real big flight of the group, and 968 was released in that first group back in November. And she took off, he took off, that would be Wasuk, and flew pretty far east, right?
Yeah, he flew down to a lake that's a few miles east of the ridge, and kind of hung out there for a while. He was gone for probably close to 2 weeks, maybe a week and a half or so. And yeah, really only came back to the release site in the past day or two.
Yeah, and that's a little bit of, we can't help but get attached to these birds, and you worry about them. And when a bird goes on a week after it's been gone and not been back with its buddies and back to the food, you start to get a little worried. And that's why those radio tags that we talked about, and you can see in this photo here of 962 of Soto. She's sitting here with her, you can see the radio tag actually, or this might be your GPS in the photo. And that's why those are so important. They're such a great tool when we do have a bird get separated like that, which is normal. It's just a good way for us to also go check on them. So I do, Darren and Evan actually drove out to try to locate and get a visual of that bird, right? And you were able to find the signal, the radio signal?
Yep, yeah, we were able to get close enough to where he was by the lake when he was still out there to get a signal. Sort of right before he roosted.
That's pretty, Darren, you've been part of a bunch of sand salmon releases, but it seems like we always get a bird that heads east like that and takes a first flight.
Yeah, it's pretty regular. It's not really too abnormal to see that. And that lake is kind of a hot spot when they do go east. They tend to head there or just the surrounding areas, and it's really not too far away. We're pretty confident from there they can still see birds like condors, other condors that are soaring up above the ridge where the release slope is. So they're not too far. Yeah,
and I believe it was last year, the year before, we had a condor release bird that we were really worried about. And then when one of the crew found that bird, it was by itself with some turkey vultures feeding on a huge cow.
Yep. Yeah. So last year was 931.
Yeah, that was last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that bird hit pay dirt. We come to find out there was a big reason it wasn't coming back, and it was a big old cow. So that was definitely pretty cool. And that alleviated our worries big time because the bird had already found food on its own and was doing really well. And then it eventually made it back a couple weeks later, made its way back. And yeah, we kind of expect the same with these guys. So yeah, that feeding on their own, they can feed on their own. It definitely a lot of variation. We have some birds that take a little longer, some that just figure it out right away. And again, it's, all these birds are so different. They're all so unique. And, you really see that when you're out there in the field with them. Yeah, and here's some photos. This is, and again, all these photos we're looking at are we're lucky enough to have a really good photographer on our field crew. Stephanie's taken all these great shots, so I just want to give her a shout out. And she can jump in, Stephanie, jump in whenever when you want to describe where you were when you took some of these photos. Like this one's good. I mean, to me, this is like a classic post-release view of the birds. They're kind of finding their place to be for the night. This was, I think, their first night out in the wild, right?
Yeah. We were actually positioned in certain locations to make sure we can find them when they do their little flights to try to find a place to roost. And I was following one of them around, specifically 966, which I think is the top condor in that picture. Yeah. And I found her roosting up for the night with 968.
Yeah, and I mean that's pretty perfect for us when not only are they perched up off the ground in a safe spot, but they're with a buddy. And so I think that's why I like this photo, because it really captures that. You can tell they're happy to see each other. Their first night out in the wild's got to be a little scary, I bet. So that's a really cool shot. And this is a cool shot. I don't know where you were when you got this, but this is kind of like the classic fleeting glimpse of a condor. It looks like it had been perched there and taken off. Is that what happened?
He was actually he was circling around a bit and he was trying to like get ready to land on that tree, but he wasn't sure about it, so he kept flying around. I think that's typical for these guys in their first time flying around.
Yeah, I was talking about that last Zoom. And you imagine your first time flying and you're coming in on this top of this tree like that with all these things sticking out, you know, these big branches coming out at you. So that's cool to hear the story behind the photo. That definitely sounds like a young, inexperienced flyer. Let's see. Yeah, here's another one. I think it's just a funny, you captured a funny wing beat here, because I was talking to folks how when they're learning to fly, they kind of overcorrect. You know, they oversteer their tails. They're always doing deeper wing beats and just wing flapping a lot more than they will when they get older. Just almost like a panic flight, you know. But yeah, how far away were you when you took this shot, you think?
This bird was pretty down the canyon, pretty far, but you know, having a long lens in my camera, I was able to get this shot. But yeah, it was taken off from a tree, and I just kind of caught. This was like the only glimpse I got in between the trees, and then I had to find the bird afterwards as he was trying to fly.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a cool shot. Yeah, you can tell because you're kind of blocked by that pine tree there. You can tell you're kind of down behind some stuff.
Yeah.
I was just telling folks, it's kind of like how it is with these, when you're trying to find these release birds, it's kind of fleeting glimpses sometimes, and you're just trying to find these little windows to see stuff, and you just never know which way they're going. And
Exactly.
yeah, and so they're needles in the haystack. They can blend in really well, you know, a dark bird like a condor, especially these young ones, if they're perched in some of these burnt pines, they just disappear. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
This is a cool shot. It's like halfway through a wing beat here of Peachy.
Yeah, Peachy
Really good.
was trying to do a short flight and like was just over wing flapping, I guess you could say.
Just a little bit nervous, I bet.
Yeah.
So Mürsch was, I think he was part of the welcoming committee, right? When we did the second release. I think he was out there on the slope when the new guys came out, the last 5 came out that morning. So that was pretty cool. Evan, where were you on the second release day? Were you in the blind?
No, I was actually out scouting the area, waiting for the birds to take off in any direction. I had a nice position where I could see both sides of the ridge and a little piece of the feeding slope. So I was able to watch them come out, but wasn't actually in the blind.
Yeah, and I was telling folks how we try to spread out strategically, so everybody's got a certain window they can watch. Like when if they do take off and take that first flight, if they head one direction, there's somebody there to kind of catch them, you know, bird incoming, kind of a, you know, over the radio, incoming. So it's no, it's cool to hear it from you guys, like how you were set up that day.
Yeah, we're ready to go. Me and Moed were out there keeping on our toes, just trying to look for any signs of flight, if anybody got scared off or anything like that. So we were really excited when we saw them roost in the trees really close and nearby, and we could keep a good eye on them.
Yeah, and Evan touched on it. We have 2 stellar Condor interns right now, Moed and Jonathan, and they were where were they on the day? Were they in the release blind? Maybe Darren, you can pipe in.
Yeah, no, Moed was out with Evan, like be kind of on watch duty for when the birds were released.
Then you and Jonathan were inside?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, this is a great shot. Look at the light on you can really see the bird. I think do you know who this is? I can only see the 5 on the tag. You remember who it is, Stephanie? But look at the crop on that bird.
That might have been 957.
Okay.
Yeah, that
So it was Mürsch. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Mürsch is definitely getting around. He's quite the traveler.
He was hanging out feeding before the birds came out to be released. So he got a full crop before the other birds came out.
Yeah, and what Stephanie's pointing out is, and I'm going to do it the arrow here on the thing, the crop on there, it's right on their, right above their breastplate, the keel, which is right adjacent to the keel is the crop, and they can store up to 2 to 3 pounds of meat. Condors can inside this crops. It's almost like a storage pouch, and they can store meat into that for a rainy day, so to speak. And it's a pretty cool adaptation for condors because, you know, we're coming into the winter and we'll get some of these big storms that will sock in on the coastline and really just basically ground the condors, you know, wherever they're at, they're going to be there for a while. So if this storm hit and Murish was in this tree, that's where he would be for the duration of the storm. We have storms that will go for days. So having a crop where you can store meat and slowly digest it, it's a really great strategy, you know, and I think it's really, it's one of those cool adaptations for condors. And I think it's a really cool one in terms of being able to ride out. If you're an animal that depends on flight to go find food, it's really cool that they've adapted a way to get through these wet spells, you know, until the sky's clear and they can go out and find food again. Another great shot. This, oh yeah, I think yep, that's Murish, she's the photogenic one. He's in a lot of these photos. Yeah, so maybe you guys can pipe in, like, what is the latest? Where are the have all the birds come back? All 9? I think that's a question folks are wondering. So all 9 have been released and have all come back to actually feed and are in the area.
Yeah, so yeah, all 9 are currently back up at the slope. Yeah, not most of them have not left since their release. They've just kind of been hanging around. But yeah, a couple like 957 and 968 I think are really the only 2 that have flown off a bit. But 957's trip was much shorter than 968's. But yeah, they're all up there now.
No, and that's great. I was telling folks before how we don't mind if they take their time, you know, because
yeah,
what's a condor lifespan? 40 to 50 years in the wild. So, you know, if they take a few weeks to get their wings under them, that's totally fine by me. You know? So yeah, it's definitely, you know, it's an interesting process to watch these guys build up that confidence and get on the wing and really start to take these big flights. Yeah, Stephanie, what's the story behind this shot? This is cool. You can see the valley off in the distance. That looks like it looks like the eastern foothills. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, this was actually one of the, I believe that this is one of the adult condors that were hanging out. They were taking off, but I soon saw them. I was watching them, and it seemed like some of the juveniles, maybe 968 during the time, was down there. Like, I was watching them when they were far away, and they seemed to meet up with other birds. So maybe that was during the time that 968 was trying to make his way back up, because he saw these adult condors soaring, and he was like, oh, hey, there's some of my buddies.
That's so cool. Yeah, like a guide, just using the others as guide birds.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah.
Yeah, that's a great shot. I love these type of shots too. It just gives you the scope of
what they see.
Yeah, what they see and how they can the amount of landscape they can cover very quickly. You know, this is a great view of how they probably see the world most of the time, you know, and how much smaller it looks to them than to us. You know, I always tell people the biggest challenge of working in the field is just being able to, you know, these condors can go from point A to point B across some of the most rugged mountain ranges, where it'd take us a half a day just to get around to where they are. And by the time you get around there, they're already back to where they started. So, yeah, so I continue to be in awe. I think we all do, of how easy they can navigate these mountain ranges in the landscape, you know, and yeah, here we go. Here's a couple more shots. I love the photo on the, well, both, I love them both, but the photo on the right, I think it just captures that kind of, that curiosity they have right after they get released of, wow, it's a big world, you know, that kind of welcome to the big world, guys, you know. it just seems like do you remember where this bird was?
Yeah, so the bird on the left, he was hanging out a little nearby the slope where like where they were released and stuff, and he could still see his condor buddies, but was kind of far away. And this bird on the right was, I think, above where they were released, and yeah, so they were hanging close, but this was getting close to like the end of the day, and they were trying to find the roost spots for the night.
I know that the bird on the right, just to me, it just has a playful looking face, like a young kid, you know. It's like
Yeah.
very, yeah, it's definitely like, oh my God, I'm free, you know, kind of, I don't know. You can tell he's almost looking at his buddies, like, look at me, I'm way up in this tree, you know. I don't know.
Yeah,
It just,
that bird kept flopping up higher and higher in the tree.
I know, it's so cool. Yeah, it's hard to describe to people what, you know, like the stuff you see out in the field, because it is up for interpretation, but it is nice to, you can't help but relate to that feeling they must have, you know, being out free for the first time. And I think this is a great shot. I think this is kind of to you guys, you know, just that effort put out in the field, and you know, the ultimate reward of having a, you know, a successful release, and then you get these awesome San Simeon sunsets. You know, I think these are the rewards we get for what we do. And yeah, this looks like, is this the end of the day on that second release? I think that's
This
Darren,
was
isn't it?
actually when we were walking up to go into the blind before our first light, and so this is what it looked like before we had to go in, so the birds don't see us.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like during this time of the year, the skies are really beautiful, and so it was kind of like a really nice morning, just like the way it felt, and getting ready to let these birds go in the wild.
Yeah, because that's right, because we had that rain come through that, or it was really close to hitting us on the second release, and it just moved north, thank God. But because the first release obviously got delayed so many days, so we thought it was lining up again for another postponement of release. But yeah, this photo captures it, because that morning was beautiful. I mean, that was a really bluebird beautiful day for condor releases. But yeah, it was you know, I was doing my best to relay what you guys were going through down there, but it's nice to have you guys on today, just to kind of express, you know, just share some of what you guys see down there during these releases. I wish I could have been down there, because that one went really smooth. And you know, I remember folks were asking about, and I thought it was a good idea too, you guys came up with that week, putting the food on the outside, just on the outside, and really encouraging them to go through that lower door. Just kind of talk through that, like Darren or somebody.
Yeah, I can, I'll take this one. Yeah, so we really thought if we put the food like right outside of the pen where they could see it, like kind of, I mean, it was really like right there for them to see at first light, that they'd like be really clued in on that. Like that would be their focus, was trying to get to that food. So that when we did open the door, like that would still maintain their focus, because that's kind of a shock to them. You know, they're not used to this thing opening on the pen really to the outside. And so that when we do that, it does shock them a little bit, but because the food was right there, I think that kept their focus. And so really it didn't take long after opening the door for the condors to eventually figure out, if they walked through it, they could get to that food that they had been staring at for hours at that point when we did open the door. So I think that really helped. And it also, having the food outside and having condors on the outside feeding on it was just another thing that drew their attention in.
Yeah, I was telling people what a huge draw that is, just having other condors kind of lead the way. And but yeah, it's counterintuitive. I think having them walk out was much nicer in a way than having them. I mean, it's more dramatic to have them fly out, but from our standpoint, it's definitely nicer to have them ease their way out. So that was a really cool, that worked out really good. And it's fun when it works out, because, you know, we try different stuff out there, and it's cool when it all comes together, especially the weather.
Yeah, definitely.
Because the weather can foil everything. let's see here. Well, that's it on, maybe we can stop there and see if folks, Mike, do we have any questions about the release stuff? Because I was going to get on to giving an update on Nico and Eva, but before we do that, it'd be kind of cool to see if anyone else wants to ask these guys questions about how the releases went.
Sure, and there's really a lot of love on the chat for the field crew. Everyone's happy to hear their voice. They say, great job. Thanks to this marvelous crew. Stephanie has been called a rock star photographer with amazing focus. And there's also a lot of love for the new names that you introduced. So that's appreciated. Vladimir has indicated that one of his favorite birds is teach. And he was wanting to know if the field crew has also been drawn to any bird in particular. I know biologists maybe, you know, have to keep a professional, you guys are very professional, but have you allowed yourself the ability to kind of single out a bird as a favorite, being that condors show so much individual personality? And maybe I'll throw this to Stephanie, since she has spent a lot of time capturing images so intimately of these birds. I'd like to know maybe Stephanie's impressions, and Evan and Darren as well.
Yeah, they're taking the pictures. Yeah, I feel like, you know, it's kind of like a nice little connection. I feel like maybe, I mean, I love them all, but I kind of like Night B2. She was like the last bird to go out of all of them, and she just seemed like to take her time and just, yeah, was very calm and just really like cool to like watch.
Yeah, she had you picked up on something we saw when we were watching the release, is how calm and collected she went out. She kind of let everybody else go out first, and then just kind of eased her way out. It was really cool, and I almost felt like it was the smarter move in a way. She kind of let the others kind of go out and see what happens to them. I mean, in a way, it was kind of a good strategy. But what about you, Darren?
Yeah, I think I think my favorite of this cohort, again, it's hard to pick one, but I think 995 is probably my favorite, just because he threw me for a complete loop when we were releasing the first day, because he went out and had like the whole afternoon and then walked back in. And Evan was there in the blind with me and got to witness me reacting to that. But yeah, that was definitely
You're supposed
something
to be released.
Yeah, exactly. What is going on? But no, that was pretty cool to see. Yeah, he just walks right back in and then plops right back up there on the perch with 968, his buddy, and just hangs out until through the night.
Yeah, and I actually was talking to folks about that. I thought that was pretty cool. You know, that was, you know, going in to hang out with his buddy again. You know, he could have gone out into the wild and spent the night outside, but he came back. Just goes to show how strong that social draw is, you know, how these birds have these bonds that we're still trying to understand. You know, they're just, it's clear and obvious when you're out there watching how tight these birds are. What about you, Evan?
I think 994 is one I take favorite to. It was one of the birds that I helped transfer from Pinnacles down when we first got the birds in the release pen, and I got to handle that bird as well. Watching it, I thought it was pretty cool. It was a little timid, but would always get in there. And then the second release, we were all placing our bets on which bird was going to be the first one out and everything. And I put my money on 994, and sure enough,
Nice.
He came out. So definitely enjoyed watching that bird.
Yeah, and I don't know, we weren't sure if Moed and Jonathan were going to be able to log into the talk because of where they were, but if you guys are on the talk, I can't tell, but please pipe in.
Hi, Joe.
Hey, there he is. There's
Happy
Moed,
listening.
everyone.
Hi,
Yeah,
guys.
Moed, who's your favorite bird of this group?
So Jonathan and I's favorite bird was 956. We named him after the word to be first, because he was always the first one to eat and the first one to leave the carcass. But when we were looking at their interactions, he was definitely not the most dominant. So we were very surprised that this bird that was not supposed to be the first was always coming in and eating. Like, he was so methodical with his business that he never got into fights. He was always very smart. I want to say sneaky, because he knew that if he ate first and left first,
Noah, you're breaking up a little bit, buddy.
no other birds were going to bother. So we really appreciate. Sorry about that. What about now? I'm currently in the blind where the
So
birds
Moed
were.
is actually watching the birds live, so this is pretty cool. Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit, but now you're coming in and out. You might have to kill your video, but it was good. It's definitely good to see you.
All right. What about now?
Yeah, you're good
Is it
now,
better?
for sure. Yeah, that's really, we hear you sound. But yeah, thanks for the, we're going to tap you for some more questions here too. Mike, you got some more questions coming in?
BB wants to know, what is it like to actually handle a condor? You're one of the very few that has this privilege, if I can call it that. How amazing is it to actually handle a condor? I'd like to start with Darren.
Okay. I mean, it's always exciting, but it's also sort of you don't know what you're going to get. You know, some birds will it's interesting. Birds that have been handled a lot know what's going on. So once they kind of just calm down and let us do whatever we have to do, which is always interesting. You know, you're holding this bird and it's just sitting there in your lap and not really struggling or anything, because it's completely calm, knows what's going on. But yeah, the younger birds are it's more of like a rodeo. You know, you got to be ready for whatever they're going to throw at you, because they don't know what's going on, and they'll wiggle around a lot and try to get out of your hands. But it's a lot of fun. It's really exciting, and really, I mean, it truly is a privilege.
Hey, and Evan, what do their heads feel like?
Oh yeah, it's really tough to describe. I don't know. They have really loose skin, so it's hard to keep a good grip on the birds. So we're constantly adjusting our grip and making sure it's comfortable for them, being sure we're not poking their eyes or cutting off their airways or anything, just being super careful with them. But yeah, it's a weird feeling. They could wiggle and squirm, and we have to be really careful with that.
Yeah, it's a balancing act, because condors can inflict a really serious bite. So you're trying to handle them as gently as possible, but restrain them enough so you don't get hurt as well. So I like the rodeo description.
Yeah, Stephanie, how many people does it take to handle a condor? Can one person do it, or does it take a whole team?
Sometimes depending on what bird you have and you're like handling confidence, you can handle it yourself, but usually it takes up to 2 people. One person to hold the body and the head, and then the second person to hold the feet, because while you're holding the body, the feet can be dangling everywhere, and that could be a safety hazard for everyone. So yeah, it takes about 2 people usually, and it's pretty incredible to like actually just hold the bird. You've seen them in the wild, and just to see them up close is pretty amazing for sure.
Yeah, the explore.org viewers are very sharp. They don't miss very much. And one of the things they've observed is the fact that they've seen turkey vultures feeding at the San Simeon site, but rarely, and not many people ever see turkey vultures feeding at the Big Sur sanctuary site. Why do you think this is, or is it just is it just happenstance that they happen to see a couple of turkey vultures at San Simeon, or is this a pattern? Joe, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, that's a really, I mean, that's a pretty clear and obvious thing when you're looking at those two cams. Yeah, and I think it's location. The San Simeon site is really close to a lot of, in terms of it's closer to, I think, a bigger hub of a stronger turkey vulture population. And the terrain's a little different down there. You got more rolling hills, and you have the elephant seal colony down there. You have a lot of, I just think the turkey, you just have a higher density of turkey vultures down there versus whereas Big Sur, the terrain is so steep and it's very dramatic changes. It's like, especially where the Big Sur release site is, there's not a whole lot of wiggle room for turkey vultures around there. You know, it's very steep, very heavily forested, you know, with redwoods. So the turkey vultures around there are really densely down on the coast, closer to the water. Whereas I think at San Simeon, they can come up off the water easier up into those hills where the condors are. You know, and again, that's just my observation, you know, but I think it's really there's a combination of things, but I do think it's because the Big Sur site is so extreme. It's just an extreme area, and, you know, the golden eagles are constantly on the watch. It's definitely not, for a turkey vulture to just roll into the Big Sur site's a little different than, you know, a lot more restrictive than coming into the San Simeon site. So that would be my guess. You guys can jump in too, but.
Hey, Joe.
Yes.
There was a question regarding the relationship of condors versus eagles, especially at the feeding site. Do they ever come in contact with bald eagles?
Yes, not as common, but, you know, what's cool about the San Simeon release site, and, you know, Darren, guys can jump in too, is it's very close to, pretty close, by the way, the condor flies, to the lakes where we have a resident bald eagle population and nesting, and that is really cool because those eagles end up, bald eagles are scavengers. You know, they're not only predators, but they are really good scavengers, and we will see them periodically come and feed on the carcasses at San Simeon. I wouldn't say it's as common as, like, say, the golden eagles in Big Sur. But they do show up periodically, and it'd be really obvious when they do. I think it's just a matter of time before we see it on the San Simeon streaming cam. But yeah, we have a pretty strong population, and as everyone knows, that's before condors. Ventana Wildlife Society released bald eagles on California's Central Coast at the same location where we're releasing condors in Big Sur, and that project was incredibly successful, and now we have a strong breeding population in Central California as a result. And it's cool to see the offspring, most likely, of those bald eagles we released years ago are probably the same ones showing up at the San Simeon site and nesting nearby. So yeah, so the bald eagles, it's not as aggressive. We've noticed when condors interact with bald eagles, whereas with golden eagles, it's definitely a battle. You know, there's a battle going, you know, there's a constant struggle between the two. It's rare that, you know, we'll see a golden eagle take out an older bird or even get a hold of an older bird. I mean, the biggest threat golden eagles present is to really young, recently released birds or recently fledged birds. And then bald eagles, we tend not to see that aggression like we do with golden eagles. And I think it's because golden eagles literally nest in the terrain right around the breeding sites, is my guess. So yeah, hopefully that answered the question.
Joe, there's a question about the rebuild of the release site and what that activity might mean for condors in that process, like some of the concerns for disruption to the condors feeding and in normal life. And I realize we're really in the early stages and we probably haven't fully put together our plan for going about this, but you've actually done this before. You've rebuilt facilities at that site before, and so maybe you can comment on some of how some of this affects condors and some of the precautions that we take to minimize any potential disruptions.
Yeah, that's the trick. It's a little bit of a juggling act because you got to get this work done. So what we do is typically the fortunate part about having 2 release sites and working with Pinnacles National Park, our close partners inland, is we can shift attention away from the Big Sur site in terms of drawing less birds if we know we have a big construction window coming up. So in 2008, when we lost our release pen, we rebuilt in 2009, and we picked a time that coincided with the time that we don't see as many condors around that Big Sur release site. And again, if birds showed up, we would, if we had a big concentration of birds show up, we would stop construction and kind of get out of the area for a little bit. But in general, we just, it's a constant kind of, you're adjusting because we don't know when the birds are going to show up. And fortunately, in the bigger picture of the lives of these birds, it's just a blip of time that we disrupt them. And again, we try to plan a lot ahead. I mean, a lot of the construction stuff is just planned down to the T. So when we get there, we can put these things together and get them up quickly. So it's, yeah, it is. It's a tricky, it's definitely a little bit of a challenge, but we listen to the birds and we just work the best we can around them. And obviously if there's any kind of we try to reduce the disturbance to almost a bare minimum.
Last Saturday, you and your crew made it look so easy. You just basically opened the door and birds walked out. And someone's asking, has it ever been a little bit more chaotic than that? Has there been a time where maybe it hasn't gone quite as smooth?
Yeah, I think, I think Darren can speak to this. He was part of the first crew that, he was an intern at that time. Maybe you can speak to that release, Darren. That definitely had its challenges.
Yeah, that was it was definitely different. It was a different process. I think because it was, so the way we worked that one is we kind of released 2 birds at a time. There were 7 total. So I guess the last time we released 3, the last 3 birds we released at once. But so there were kind of like 4 separate release times that we did over a period of a couple months. And yeah, I mean, we had no idea, now, like we've been saying, birds will go down to the lake or they'll hit the coast, shortly after being released. At that time, we had no idea where they were going to go or what they were going to do. So it was definitely a little more hectic and stressful just in terms of trying to figure out or even be able to plan for like what was going to happen. And, there was one bird, 718, who he was one of the first 2 released, and he when they were released, those first 2 birds, it was 718 and 697, and a bunch of older birds came down from Big Sur that first day we released. And I think when they flew away, these like younger birds tried to follow them, and 718 got lost for like a month or something, sort of down like again east of the ridge where we were releasing them. And yeah, it was, we were stressing out a little bit. We were like, oh no, is he okay? We weren't sure if he was getting water or food, but he did eventually make it back. But there were more moments like that, more things like that where we just weren't sure what was going to happen. But now that it's been a few years since the first releases, we have a better idea of how that happens. But yeah, it was definitely a process just to feel that out, and even just the releasing itself. What would they do, when we trap them in to let them out the outer door, that section we have to let them out. Those first releases, we tried one, I think it was 718 again, we tried one day, and he just, we opened the outer door and he didn't move. He just stayed in the pen the whole day. And so we had to close the door again and let him out the next day. But yeah, it was definitely, there are definitely times it has not been as smooth as this.
Yeah, this ranks as one of the smoothest, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So kudos to you guys. Yeah, I have go ahead. Sorry, Mike. I was going to go to the next slide and start talking about, I touched on this on the release day, but I figure we can talk a little more about it. Everyone remembers the big,
Why don't you go ahead and do that?
Yeah, so the status of the rescue chicks, we've definitely been getting a lot of questions about this and concerns, obviously, as were we, with the rescues of Anico and the evacuations of Anico and 1033, who the LA Zoo staff named Eva, short for evacuate, which I just love the name personally. It's just fits perfect. And so just last week, not last week, a couple weeks ago, they were able to get, again, both these birds are being watched really close because of what they went through. You know, and Nico thankfully initially looked like she was injured, and then upon evacuation and time in captivity, that injury she had was superficial, thankfully, and not a long-term injury. And she was able to recover pretty quickly. And we still feel good about getting a Nico out of the mix because of what happened at the end there with 729 Ninja coming in and disrupting things. And we think he was trying to do a territory kind of takeover move. Obviously, Redwood Queen was there to protect her chick, and they all went falling out. And, but we just thought because of the drama and what Nico had already been through, and we knew how well LA Zoo not only takes care of birds, but how well they are at rearing birds, that a Nico would be in good hands, and that we would get another shot at getting a Nico back out in the wild come next fall. And the same for Eva. Eva, different issues. They weren't immediately apparent when we evacuated Eva because of a fire that was approaching. We had a window to get her out. Again, it was a single parent nest, so we got Eva out. And it was because of the fire, and it was after she was in captivity a while. They noticed she had an injury they think happened when she was a really small chick in the nest. They, you know, we will never probably know what exactly. She may have gotten attacked by a predator, like a golden eagle may have come in and tried to grab her, and she fought it off and maybe injured herself. But she had a lower spine issue going on, and again, the fortunate thing, she's young, so they've been watching it heal, and she's healing really well, and was just released out into the same pen with a Nico, and that was a huge step for Eva. So we're excited, and the hope is that by come fall 2021, we have both these birds coming back for release, which would most likely be at San Simeon. And you know, it's not Big Sur, but their nests weren't really, the Big Sur release site wasn't exactly where their nests was either. So the San Simeon site's really a better spot for young birds to get their feet on the ground, whether it be wild fledged birds like Eva and Nico, or release birds. At that point, they want to be around birds their same age, and we think they'll have a better group to socialize with and have a bond with, you know, and down the road potentially meet a bird in that young group that they'll end up nesting with. So there's a lot of silver linings to keeping them with the next release cohort that goes out at San Simeon, because we were asked that question, why would we release them at San Simeon? And that's the main reason, is there's we think the advantages outweigh of the effort of going to release them in Big Sur. We don't think it would actually be the best, give them the best shot. And will 190, you know, Redwood Queen recognize a Nico? I'm sure she'll know her own chick, but a Nico will be at an age when she would have naturally, a Nico would have moved on, and Redwood Queen would have started nesting again. So again, those are the natural patterns, and we're just trying to follow those. That's been our success. That's been our recipe for success ever since we've releasing. You know, we really try to listen to the birds and follow what follow the foundations of condor biology and what we do. So yeah, and so those two birds are in great hands. The latest on those two, I got an update earlier this week, both progressing well. And again, Eva's recovery is going to be a little slower than a Nico, but a Nico is well on our way. So we're excited, and again, fingers crossed that things continue to go well for Eva. And then the status of the wild chicks. This photo was actually, this is our wild chick in Big Sur that is still out there, 1030. And Stephanie took this photo. Maybe you can talk about this photo, Stephanie, and when you took it and the situation, because this is our last visual of this chick.
Yeah. So when we had to wait a while to go back in our like sanctuary and like any of the areas that were burned, And so when we finally got access to go back in burned areas, I went up to go check on this chick because we haven't known the status of it since the fire, the Dolan fire. And sure enough, when I came up to search for it, I went to its tree and it had poked its head out and had already been hopping around the branches. And so it was following its dad, 652. And he was just hanging out with this chick, and it was really nice to see the chick doing well, hopping around with the branches. And that was the last time that we saw it, and ever since we've been keeping an eye out for it.
That I was telling folks that's pretty normal. You know, we get lucky sometimes and can see these young fledged birds flying around, but they're pretty. The parents keep them pretty protected and pretty, you know, out of view. It's I mean, in Big Sur, they're like needles in the haystack. So they, you know, it's we definitely have to be in the right place at the right time to see them. And what I think, and we said this on the last Zoom, I think the first place we'll probably see this chick is on the camp, up at the release site. So that'd be pretty exciting. And so for all of you who regularly tune into the Big Sur Cam, definitely keep an eye out for an untagged bird, because it most likely will be 10:30. Because again, this bird is untagged, truly wild, just out there flying around. So it's you know, it's typically right around. We always joke it's always our Christmas present every year. We get to see these untagged show up at the release site. So the timing's about right for you know, for our Christmas present. So I'm hoping that that would be my big, that'd be high on my list, just to get a visual of this chick on the cam pretty soon. Yeah, and so Pinnacles has 3 wild fledged. They have 1021, 1027, and 1034. And from what we've heard from that crew, things are progressing well. And again, they're getting visuals here and there. Some chicks more than others. And so, you know, again, time will tell. And we can tell by the behavior of the parents that these parents are all still caring for their chicks, just as we suspect for 1030. The parents are their behavior is very telling of what they're doing. So we're pretty confident. We still have 4 wild fledged chicks out there doing well. And again, you know, for a year where we had such devastating blows in terms of to the population, you know, we started with 8 chicks this year. Some of those perished in the fire. We had 2 that were evacuated. To still be at 4 is pretty darn good. It's not ideal, but it's still, we'll take it. It's still a step in the right direction. Any year we have wild fledged chicks in the out there in the wild, it's a huge success, and that's really the future of the species. So the flock overall, the population is now, you know, since the fires and since we've been adding release birds, Pinnacle still has 2 birds to release, but we're at just above 90 birds. So that's actually, we're moving back in the right direction. I think we were at 93. We have a few birds in captivity. One bird, 901, is getting treated for burns. He survived the fire, but has he was captured at Pinnacles and shown to have some severe burns. So he's recovering at LA Zoo. And then there's 2 other birds in treatment for lead poisoning that we think will be okay. So yeah, so things are slowly, you know, we're slowly getting back to where we were. We were just over 100 birds before the fire hit. We think, you know, after this nesting season and we get into releases next year, we'll be well past 100 birds and back to where we were. So it was a setback for us, but again, you just got to pull up your bootstraps and keep pushing forward. And we know the birds can do it. You know, they're incredibly resilient, incredibly strong. You know, you guys can just see it. For you that watch the cam, just how persistent these birds are. And we're coming into probably one of the most exciting times of year. We're into nesting season, just right on the precipice. So I thought it'd be cool if the crew kind of give us a 2021 nest preview. who's looking like they're going to go this year? And you know, the other question, guys, is a lot of the viewers have been asking about Redwood Queen and have we seen any developments there? So I don't know who wants to go first there, Darren, if you want to.
Well, I'm actually going to pass it off to Evan because he saw some interesting display behavior the other day,
Oh,
or
that's
mentioned
right.
it to me at least. So,
Yeah. So the other day I was tracking the coast and I did see the trio up on top of the ridge of the mountain. And it looked like maybe 204 was displaying to 646. So maybe something's happening there. I know another volunteer, Tim Huntington, has a nice photo of that happening as well. So we're definitely monitoring that, keeping an eye out for it. There also was some activity earlier this week on the slope with 219 possibly displaying to 311. So
That would
hoping.
be a cool repair because 311 lost 567 after the
Right.
fire. So if that would be great if she could, that'd be a new pairing. And
Yeah. So
they're both widowed. So that would actually be kind of cool, you know?
yeah, no, I'm really excited. I'm hoping that one happens. That would be really great to see.
Yeah. Has anybody seen anything with Redwood Queen? I haven't seen anything real clear. It's still kind of a gray area for me, but maybe someone else has seen something.
I'll just say I haven't seen anything with her yet either. I mean,
still a
some
lot
others,
of time left.
yeah, some others that we're monitoring, 171 and 209 are frequently together up at the Big Sur release site, and 208 and 168 are actually up there right now together. So yeah, those are two pairs we're monitoring as well. I don't know, Moet, if you're still with us, you want to say if you've seen any of the trio down at San Simeon displaying.
I don't know if he's still on.
Yeah, he might not be. But that's another one we're keeping an eye on, at least is 566, 725, and 711.
Yeah, and it was sad they lost their chick this year in the fire, but we're pretty sure they'll give it a go this year. I mean, they're probably one of our higher probability pairs to nest, as are the trio, 204, 646, and 470. Yeah, the trios keep coming up, and I think it is something in condors that we didn't really know at the beginning when we started working with them, that trios were more common than they are. And they've documented trios in other flocks, the flock in Southern California. It's happened over at Pinnacles, and it's happened out in Arizona. So we're thinking trios are not necessarily unusual for condors. And we've seen it be where it's two males and a female, or two females and a male over the years. So there could be a strategy to it. There is a strength in numbers kind of approach where if one of the pair of that trio were to die, the other one would be able to step in and take over. So it is an interesting, another fascinating look into the world of condors. Is just, when we get into looking at these pair bonds and these trios, it's, we're learning as we go, and it's just, again, just more amazing stuff we're learning about these birds. Yeah, and again, these photos here, I think this is 209 and 171, and the photos right here that Stephanie took here, and then up there in one of their favorite snags. Yeah, they're one of the more I don't know how to put it. You see them a lot, and they're not too shy about showing their affection for each other. So there's always a guarantee when you go up to the Big Sur site, you're going to see 209 and 171 front and center. And he's a very dominant bird. So, and she's a pretty dominant female. So they're definitely out and about. Anytime you're in that zone, they let their presence be known. So yeah, we're excited that they give it a go. They're two of our older pairs, and two of our older birds, I'm sorry. And they're both pretty experienced, so we're hoping they're going to give it a go this year.
Now, Joe, we were talking about these courtship displays. I think you're referring to when they spread their wings out like we see on the camera. But Marilyn wants to know if there are aerial displays between the pair members, kind of like what we see with some raptor species. Do they have any aerial displays?
You know, they definitely do some aerial stuff. It's not well understood. You know, I know, you know, it's pretty, like if you ever watch Golden Eagles, they do a real elaborate roller coaster flight with aerial display to each other, and other raptors will do something similar. With condors, we have seen like chasing, you know, we'll see them chase each other in a playful way, almost like, you know, you'll see pairs, you know, they're a pair, they're not actually aggressive. So there is some aerial, you know, some aerial kind of courtship type stuff that goes on, but the most famous is obviously their, when they hold their wings out, the males do and tip their heads back and forth and really put on the show for the female. And yeah, and right now, you know, you'll be watching on that big Sir Cam, and some days one male will start displaying and then a bunch of other males will start displaying, and they're not even necessarily displaying to a female, they're just doing it because he's doing it. So it's sometimes pretty funny. There's just like a big chain reaction of birds doing displays, especially the younger males are probably just trying to emulate these older birds they kind of look up to. So it'll be exciting to watch in the coming months on the cam. Yeah, especially late January, February, things are going to really vamp up. You know, just we're coming right into it.
Hey, Joe, just as we're after 5 o'clock, but I do have one question that has come up with the pre-questions, but the redwood tree that Aniko was in seemed to have a lot of damage. Is there any ideas of whether that would be used again? And if not, maybe what we have plans to do with the camera that's in it?
Oh, that's a good point. That's still on our, the tree is definitely usable. It was burned, but the area where the birds nest is totally fine. In terms of how strong the tree is, we're still evaluating it and whether it's safe enough for us to go in and get the camera. So we're going to get through the winter and just, and again, 190 Redwood Queen might jump in there with a new mate and start using it this year. It's not out of the question that she could be back in that same nest with an egg in a couple months. So if that's the case, we'll try to salvage the cable that got burned coming down and try to get that camera going again, and leave it in there, obviously, if she's in there already. So that would be the step, but it's really right now just a human safety issue. It's just the tree itself, even professional arborist, you know, it's a hard tree to evaluate because it's so big and it burns so much of the bottom, you know, not enough to where the condors would potentially knock it over, but it's just putting humans into the mix is definitely, there's enough of a question there that we may not want to take the risk. So we may not ever be able to get that camera now.
And just real quick, Joe, has there been any sightings of Pasqual? A lot of people are still interested and love Pasqual, who came before Aniko, I guess, a couple of years ago from that same nest. Any recent sightings of that bird?
Yeah, you know, I think it's really interesting is he tends to hang out over at pinnacles. You know, here he was a coastal wild fledge, you know, in the redwoods, and he's totally attracted to that area over there, which is pretty much the complete opposite of Big Sur in terms of habitat. You know, it's very dry and rocky. You know, obviously the pinnacles is just an amazing spot, but yeah, that we don't see him too often on the coast because he's taken such a liking to the pinnacles, and you know, he might end up nesting there down the road. So really cool. You just never know what these birds are going to do. But we have seen that pattern that birds born on the coast tend to move inland, and birds that born near pinnacles tend to come into the coast, and you know, it's kind of a cool exchange. And I wanted to part today on another happy holiday note. We can't help but putting Santa hats on condors. So this is Stephanie's fine work, but yeah, we just want to wish everyone a very happy and safe holidays. Obviously, we're all still trying to get through this COVID thing, and you know, and we hope this window into condors and our work is, you know, can uplift your spirits in a time of like we're in. And again, you know, the holidays are a time where you just it's good to reflect and look at the environment, and you know, and it's we're really happy to see how well the condors are doing considering how how much they got knocked down by that fire. And I can't say it enough. And, I think I'm not alone in saying how resilient these birds are. And there is no doubt in our minds they will bounce back. They are definitely fighters. And, we're very much looking forward to 2021 and a bright future for the species. And and I think actually next time we see you folks, we'll be in 2021. So again, thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for the field crew for being here, for Mike and Kathy and Mo and Jonathan down there. Really great to see everybody again. See all of you. Thank you for tuning in as always. And again, have the happiest of holidays, and we'll see you next month. Thanks, everyone.